Today's collectible spot, we are having a look at the QMX Star Trek The Original Series Leonard Bones McCoy 1/6 scale articulated figure. We'll be looking today at the QMX, also the QMX exclusive, which features a short-sleeved doctor's tunic. This is Spot's continued looks at the QMX or Quantum Mechanix Star Trek 6 scale figures, as we've already had a look at the Kirk as well as Spock on this channel. The package or box artwork features the NCC 1701 as a somewhat outlined schematic as a black box, and then you've got Star Trek The Original Series 50th anniversary at the top. The side of the box has Master Series articulated Leonard Bones McCoy 1/6 scale articulated figure, with the back of the box featuring an incredible image there of the figure. Now this isn't Bones, this isn't DeForest Kelley that you see on the back of the box here. This is what the figure is going to look like to give you some idea. Super impressive, and having already been wowed by Kirk and Spock, can't wait to get this one opened up. That would be your box. Spot's going to take a break and get this opened up. When we come back, though, we're going to get a better look at the Quantum Mechanix Star Trek The Original Series Leonard Bones McCoy 1/6 scale articulated figure. There's more heading way, guys. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. Just before we have a look at Dr. McCoy, let's get a gander at the display stand that comes included with the figure. It's the same display stand as both featured with Kirk and Spock, respectively, which has a circular black bottom and the classic Star Trek emblem on top of that. There is an adjustable clip, and much like most 6 scale figures that have the curvature to the top of the clip, the figure's legs are going to be sitting in between, giving a nice stable stance to the figure. McCoy has turned out incredible, having him now physically in hand. Now we've seen images of the Quantum Mechanix Star Trek figures, of course, online. There is also a showcased Sulu. Looking forward to getting that as well. But even when I looked at the images online of McCoy, I knew that he was something special, and I felt like the sculpt incorporated to this particular figure, while very strong representations of Kirk and Spock, I did feel like McCoy was the strongest of the lot when it came to his likeness, and now physically getting him in hand, very much so, reinforces that opinion. Let's get a better look at his face. Yes, Bones has not looked better. The likeness on him is uncanny, and DeForest Kelley, God rest his soul, if he had been around, I think he would have been extremely impressed with how QMX has handled him in figure form. I literally feel like I'm looking at the actor here portraying Bones in 6 scale treatment. The wrinkles on his face, as well as the eyes themselves, are just fantastically done. I can't think that they could have gone any closer to looking like Bones here than what they've accomplished. Now, I did like Kirk, and I did like Spock, and truthfully, out of the 3 figures, I feel like Kirk might have slipped a little bit when it came to his likeness. But comparing all 3 figures, I think that Bones by far has the closest resemblance to the actor who portrayed him. Very much so do I feel like the company handling this has a good, solid standpoint for what they need to do with this figure line. Now, granted, the Star Trek property could have been handled by any number of 6 scale release companies out there, but time and time again, I'm getting more and more impressed with Quantum Mechanix, having already handled the Malcolm also from Firefly, and now then looking at the Kirk and Spock. McCoy, again, another outstanding release from Quantum Mechanix. Even like the hair. The hair is sculpted perfectly. We'll just give it a turn around here. Something that is also a very key element to a good sculpt on a figure. Well, sculpt is certainly the biggest priority, I think, when it comes to whether a 6 scale figure can be done well or can miss the mark. Sculpt obviously is number 1, but second, and very, very close to that, is paint. If the paint is slightly off, a sculpt, no matter how good it could possibly be, can still miss its mark. You could have a really good sculpted figure, but if you don't have the proper paint applied to it, then unfortunately, that's where a figure just doesn't deliver. Not only does Bones deliver here in an just incredible spot-on likeness, but also the paint is phenomenal. All the little nuances, though, in flesh tone. I think they also picked a good flesh tone for him. Kirk's flesh tone, or skin color, was fairly good. Spock, a couple of people have weighed in thinking that Spock looked a little clammy in his complexion. I think McCoy, though, between all three of those figures, I think has not only the better likeness, but also one of the best paints. Of course, I can possibly talk more about Bones and talking about comparisons between the other figures that we had a look at on this channel without doing physical comparisons with Bones and the two figures already looked at. So for that reason, we'll bring in Captain Kirk and Science Officer Spock. Yes, admittedly so, all three figures are great sculpts, very accurate likenesses. But I think, as you can see, as they get further and further into this line and they release more of the crew of the Enterprise, I do have to say that the likeness is getting better and better. Kirk, I do feel like, well, a good execution of the figure, slightly from certain angles, I feel like it doesn't quite always look like Kirk. On the other end of it, when you've got Spock, I think Spock's likeness is incredible, but the paint is just slightly off a little bit. It's a little bit too on the brown side, maybe not as pale as it could be. Then you got McCoy right in the middle, which is really the best of both worlds. You've got the solid, strong sculpt that Spock represented, but I think you've also got a good paint that I think Kirk favored more so with. And the trio, have not looked any better. Now, outfit-wise, clearly Bones is closer to Spock in his attire with the blue Starfleet uniform. Kirk kind of stands alone being his captain, obviously captain outfit in his yellow Star Trek tunic. When we obviously get Sulu, I think Sulu is obviously going to be wearing red, and then I think we're going to be getting a McCoy as well. Can't wait to really start filling up the ranks of the crew of the USS Enterprise. Again, as we get progressively more and more into this line, QMX gets better and better when it comes to their sculpts and paint application. So let's examine a little bit more here McCoy. McCoy has his boot-high pants, common sight with the other figures that we had to look at from the show. He also has the materialed boots. So even though there is a plastic foot and leg section inside here, the material they've applied over top of it is an actual fabric boot, which is a nice touch and makes it just feel a little bit more realistic. Once again, his Starfleet uniform here adorned in blue. His symbol here also has the medical symbol, or I should say the Starfleet insignia also has the medical symbol inside. And then he's also got his ranking on his sleeves. Material, I've also touched base on this before when we looked at the Spock, and I think actually the Kirk, I weighed in on this, that the material is scaled. Now let me kind of explain a little bit more what I'm talking about. It's more scaled to the scaling of the figure. Sometimes when you get costumes on 6-scale figure releases, or even smaller scale figure releases, the material texture is larger scaled than appropriately fitting the character. Sometimes you get sweaters, for example, on costumed characters, for example, where the stitching and the knitting is too big for theoretically a character that would be, a 1-to-1 scale. If the figure was larger and that threading of the material was larger as well, it would look off-putting. The material is, again, spot on. A nice, very fine weaved, fine fibered shirt. Underneath here, he does have the black shirt, but the collar is already attached to the tunic, like it's already one piece. Not simply going to remove it, and this part's going to stay behind. Now, this is also the This is also the exclusive. So one of the benefits of getting the exclusive is that he also has his short sleeve doctor's uniform as well. And showing you what those look like, you get yourself a longer outfit, which velcros on the underside. So I feel like you would have to actually slightly lower his pants to get this looped around to give you a tight fit, rather than just simply tucking it into the top of his pants. Then on top of that, he has the medical shirt, which he would be wearing on the starship itself. I love the inclusion of this. This making this the exclusive is all the more reason. Now Spock and Kirk both had their own exclusives. Spock had the Vulcan guitar of sorts, and Kirk had the phaser rifle. While I think both of those work equally fine, I may not always display Kirk with the rifle. I may not always display, obviously, Spock with the Vulcan instrument. But most definitely, I would be displaying, or possibly displaying, Bones with the medical uniform. So this is a perfect inclusion for making this the exclusive. Like as well, the default outfit, you can see that it has the Starfleet insignia, and there's also the little medical symbol there inside of it. And again, the material that they've used for this, a very fine weaved, very fine threaded outfit, which looks very accurate, putting it on a figure that would, in scale, be a 1-to-1, obviously, as a full living character. So if we're going to go ahead and change Bones, let's go ahead and pop the hands off here. I'm just going to wiggle them off of the peg socket here. We're going to do the same on the other side here. Now be careful removing this. The reason why I say that, obviously, is with the ranking stitched or adhered to the sleeve, make sure that you're not pulling on it or rubbing your finger against it in case this wants to come off. You know, I would feel just a little bit of a fray to it. It would eventually come off completely. Then we can go ahead and grab Bones' head, and we're going to pop it. Now the whole neck, I might add, is one piece. It's attached to the head. So you're not actually pulling from the head portion. You're going to be pulling more so from the neck, and just wiggle that off, pop it completely off, raise the arms, and then we can go ahead and start taking off his uniform. Once that's taken off, go ahead to the back and unzip slightly the pants, as we want to get this. There we go. And we just want to slide these down. You can see how it's already attached, or the default undershirt is attached. It's attached by Velcro. So we can go ahead and unvelcro this. And when we are replacing it then, we're going to be replacing it in the reverse order. Slide it back over and then Velcro tab the underside. It's not to say that you have to necessarily go to the extreme of Velcroing the bottom, but it does give you a very tight fit against the torso, so it looks unwrinkly. And if you are just simply tucking it in, you may run the risk that it just becomes a little baggy and bulky around the torso point. By keeping it tight and Velcroing the bottom, it ensures that you have a nice fitted attire. Then you can, from there, you can then add the surgical or doctor's outfit on top of that. By the way, if you are wondering why we are changing this out, it's because the default shirt is a circular opening to the top, and it also has longer sleeves. The one that we are going to be replacing it to seems to have shorter sleeves, and more importantly, it has the turtleneck portion that's going to be sticking out from the top of the ship on board uniform that Bones wears. Just before we proceed further, though, I just want to show you what the underarm or underbody looks like once you've kind of got everything off. Loads of articulation. Really, I didn't realize it had as much as it did. It looks like it has a top ball joint, as well as a mid ball joint and lower ball joint, as well as a slew of different joints in the arms and shoulder areas of the figure. With the undershirt now replaced, let's go ahead now and add the exclusive medical shirt. Now, one of the benefits of having Bones in his on-ship doctor's uniform versus essentially his default Starfleet uniform is that it does differentiate him then from the likes of a Spock, who basically really from the neck down would have had a very mirrored-like uniform, minus, of course, the ranking and a slight variation to the insignia, but at least by having the outfits different from one another, you can have Bones then being rather more distinct and fitting more the profile of the on-ship doctor. Articulation on Bones McCoy. He does have the ball joint in the head, as we've already had a look at. He does have a shoulder, or I should say, a shoulder blade crunch on either side of his shoulder, so he can bring the arms forward or back. Then he's got a secondary ball joint that it allows the arms to hinge outward, forward and back. He has a rotation right. Actually, more so, it's not so much a rotation at the bicep portion, but rather he has more a ball joint rotation right where it attaches itself to the torso here. Is a double bend in the elbow, a rotation and hinge in the individual hands. As we already looked at as well, he has a top crunch on the top torso, top section right here, a mid-torso crunch, and a lower torso crunch, which allows for individual swivels in those areas as well. A forward and back motion on the legs, a split as well. Top swivel, about top cut swivel right around the thigh portion area here. Double hinge knee, a swivel, and hinge in the feet. So we've looked at the display stand. We've done comparisons to the other Star Trek releases. We've also looked at his articulation. Let's have a look at some of the accessories, and he does come with a lot to Dr. Bones McCoy. Because the nature of the additional accessories lend itself, I feel, a little bit more towards away missions than actually being on board the Starship Enterprise, I've taken Bones out of his medical scrubs and I've put him back into his default outfit because I feel like this would be something that he would be, again, if he was going on away missions, these are a lot of the accessories that he would likely be taking with him. Case in point, one of the things that he does come with is a little medical kit. Now the medical kit seems to have a magnet on the back of it where you can attach it just to the side here of his pants. They attach very easily like so, and you can even still open up the medical bag or the medical carry-all with him, and then he would have them still accessible while he was working on injured crew member or injured civilians, whatever planet that they've gone down onto. Inside this medical bag, though, or medical carry-all, he can have a couple of different things carried with him. For example, he has these little vials of different elixirs, a total of 4. He has one that is green, and we can just, there's these little pockets right at the bottom here. Everything has a spot. It's just a matter of finding the ability to get them all into those pockets. He has one that's blue, and slide that right next to the green. No real order and sequence as to which color you have to put. I'm just grabbing what's next to me here. And you can see that you just have to be a little bit more, just a little patient with getting them through those little slots. Some of the slots feel like they're sealed shut, but no, they are not. Just, again, be a little bit patient. He comes with a red vial. And slide that in as well. Here we go. And lastly, he has a yellow vial. We can slide that at the end. A total of 4. Bear with me, bear with me. Once you do this the first handful of times, it becomes a little bit easier. Although you're really not going to be, I can't imagine you're going to be removing these very often. So one time may be the only time that you get these in place. And there we go. All affixed and slotted in their corresponding spots. He also gets himself a little medical scanner. Medical scanner. And it's supposed to be housed at the top here of in the largest pocket. Again, you will find yourself a couple of times taking, I even found it was easier just to take like a safety pin and just kind of work away the pocketed area. Judging by, as you saw with the little vials here, sometimes they're still a little bit difficult to get them all into place. You, again, just want to keep working that until you've got it in the little pocketed slot. Included as well, he gets himself a hypo spray. Painted singularly only in silver, but a nice sculpt to say the least. He does also have the suitable hands for holding those. It's holding not only, I should say, the hypo spray, but all the accessories that we've currently had a look at. I can show you the hands in a second. Before we do that though, there's still more accessories that he comes included with. He comes also included with a tricorder. I wondered if the tricorder was the same as Spock's, and sure enough, we just flip the dome up here, and we open up the front section. There we go, get your finger in there. It is the same tricorder, exactly the same, which is perfectly fine. If you don't choose to display Spock with a tricorder, you could certainly opt to use to have one with McCoy. Or what I might end up doing is display Spock with the open tricorder on his, and have Bones's tricorder simply just housed on the side instead. Like with the other two figures as well, he comes included with a communicator. Communicator usually is easiest to open it just by tipping it upside down and letting gravity work for you. And the communicator actually has, I should say, has all the buttons painted in here. There we go, as well as the speaker, as well as the gold, almost honeycomb metallic lid, very common for the classic Star Trek communicators. Just open that up. It is also has a magnet on the back here, so you can take the communicator and just lift up Bones's tunic there, or his shirt, and it can be just housed just on the back. It's just a magnet, just clips right into place, super easy. Just of course making sure the shirt is out of the way. Jim, I'm a doctor, not a soldier. Well, you know, even as a doctor, McCoy still needs to pack some firepower, so included with him as well, he comes with this same phaser as we've looked at before. The phaser also has a removable, smaller, portable phaser, depending on your preference. And the smaller phaser simply attaches to the larger phaser by sliding the little notch, little piece here that sticks out from the tip. Slide it forward into the phaser and then magnetizes. It doesn't go anywhere. That can also be fit into his hand, or he does also have a magnet, which sometimes can be a little harder to find. It's on this side right here. There we go, and just clips into place. There's a magnet here. There's also a magnet on the back here, and there's also the magnet on the side that we've already looked at with the medical pack that comes also with McCoy. So just depending on where you want to have the phaser, tricorder, or phaser, medical pack, or communicator housed on the figure. If you like displaying, though, Bones in his original Season 1 look, he comes also with this sash that both Kirk and Spock had. Simply just take phaser, take the communicator off. Both the phaser and the communicator can be housed onto the tunic, or onto the little sash here. And there's magnets, but again, the hardest part is just trying to figure out where those magnets are housed. So for example, there is a magnet right there, and then there's a secondary magnet down at the bottom there for the communicator. And this just clips around to the back, Velcro closure. It's still, I find though, not that I would be displaying Bones or really any of the members on their away missions with these. I do find that it's still a somewhat tight fit getting the two pieces together. It doesn't seem to allot for much clearance, and you get it, but it's just by a little bit. I guess they did want to have it more as a tighter fit for displaying. And again, it's just trying to find the magnets. Can be a little bit more of an accomplished feat here. There's a magnet there, and there should be a magnet on the side here as well. We'll just put it there for the time being. And then you can put the Starfleet uniform over top of that. Because I really felt I didn't give that true justice, I wanted to show you, you could probably even see it here. There's the magnet right there, and the other magnet is right at the top there. So the phaser. The problem is the magnet on the phaser is very, very small. It's right at the handle here. So when you line it up, you want to line it up exactly, because again, you're working with a very, very small magnet. Sometimes it doesn't always catch. And again, you can see it just caught the tail end of that phaser. But that goes right there. Again, not the most secure fit at times. And the communicator goes right there. The communicator sits a lot easier because it's, well, the magnet, it doesn't seem obstructed as much. The phaser handle, it seems, because the handle sticks a little further out from the magnet, I find it does block a little bit of that magnet from grabbing on to the sash. So at times you may feel like you get a good fit, other times doesn't always work. Now, having a look though at the one other accessory that he comes included with, of course omitting the hands for the time being, he also comes with a ring. And this, I think, is the true testament to Quantum Mechanix' care and detail to their 6-scale figure releases. DeForest Kelley, who played, of course, Bones in the show, would wear this ring. This is his mom's ring, and he actually wore this throughout his entire acting career. He felt it kept him centered and focused and reminded him of the things that were more important, and in this case, family. When it came to the casting of him in Star Trek, Gene Roddenberry felt like, well, in the future, rings wouldn't necessarily play a significant role, and he basically didn't want DeForest Kelley to be wearing this ring. So as a result of it, DeForest Kelley insisted, quote, you can have me, I should say, if you can't have my ring. So basically, Gene Roddenberry let DeForest Kelley end up wearing his mother's ring in the show, and he wore it throughout the show run. So it's really cool, super cool, that this little small trinket of jewelry would be also included with the 6-scale figure as well. I'm sure I don't have to tell you though, putting the ring on the very small pinky finger of this doctor can be a little difficult. Not difficult in the sense that you can't get it on, but difficult in the sense that I'm so terrified about losing it. It's one of the smallest pieces I've seen get released with a figure. That make sure you do put it on a hand, and if you're changing the hand, make sure you remember also to take that ring off and put it on the next corresponding interchangeable hand that you're putting on, so that later on you're not trying to stumble around finding out where you put that ring. It's again a marvelous showpiece to include this as well, as it was such an important, significant role in the actor's life. As we come close to wrapping up this review, one of the other accessories, of course included with this, is a series of interchangeable hands. Bones comes with a lot of different hands. Hands, of course, intended for holding. There's a couple of closed fists, somewhat relaxed palm, some for holding tools and medical instruments, one for holding his communicator, and one for holding, which I'm likely going to be displaying him with, one for holding his hypo spray. One of Spot's favorite fandoms, not only when he was younger, but also to this day, is Star Trek. And yes, other Treks have come along. Star Trek Next Generation was an outstanding series, but I still have a soft spot and love for the original classic Trek. It was something that, as a kid, every Saturday afternoon, Star Trek was here in Canada, and I always sat down and made sure I watched an episode. Even if I had seen the episodes countless times, again and again and again in some cases, I still loved the crew of the original NCC 1701. I have always wanted in my adult collecting days, I always wanted a company to come along and give us 6 scale representations of the original crew of the USS Enterprise. Quantum Mechanix has delivered. Quantum Mechanix has delivered strongly with so far these 3 characters that we've looked at. I thought the Kirk, I should say, was a very good release. It's the facial sculpt could have been just a little bit better. I felt like Spock elevated that sculpt with a really good sculpt, with a paint that I feel could have been just a slight bit better. Bones taken everything that Kirk had, taken everything that Spock had, good sculpt, good paint, and given us now their new release with McCoy. And I think McCoy is by far the best of the lot. Hands down, it looks like DeForest Kelley. The sculpt is phenomenal. The paint is really good. And he comes with a ton of show-specific and suitable accessories for the ship's doctor. Especially, one would say too, if you do get a chance to pick this guy up for yourself, make sure you get the exclusive, because I think by incorporating the work scrubs to this figure as well, it gives you possibilities to either have Bones displayed as you would see him on the ship, or in this case, as you would see him displayed if he was on an away mission. I probably would see myself displaying him more so as an away mission doctor, because I feel like hands-on, love to see him more with like the medical hyposprays and the tricorder, something where he would be on a planet helping villagers or an alien species. That's how I like my McCoy, but certainly if you wanted to have McCoy displayed with these scrubs, you could also do that as well. Outstanding job by Quantum Mechanix. I knew I was going to like McCoy when I saw him online, when I saw initial photos of what the figure was going to look like. Now physically in hand, he has brought everything really that I wanted the figure to be, and then some. Truly, he is the best. If my honest opinion means anything, truly I feel like he is the best of the 3 figures that we already had a look at on this channel. And I hope that Quantum Mechanix, not only I think we're going to be getting this Sulu, I think we're getting McCoy, we're getting Montgomery Scott as well. If we get Scotty and Sulu, I hope we're going to get more and more of these. And eventually, we had saw displays of a Captain Kirk sitting on a captain's chair. Maybe eventually we're going to start seeing some expansions where we're going to get actual scenes from the Enterprise where you could display the figures with. And then that would be really super cool. Again, big fan of these. Big fan of Quantum Mechanix, and I'm stoked. I am so excited for future Star Trek characters. Not only even just classic Trek, but eventually getting into the realm of Next Generation, and maybe even the actual motion picture movie versions of these guys as well. It's a good time to be a Trek fan, and all thanks to the folks over at Quantum Mechanix. Today's collectible spot was gushing a little bit, I know. Today we're, though, having a look at the Star Trek Classic series. This was Dr. McCoy, Bones, in not living form, but pretty much the closest thing you can get other than having DeForest Kelley sitting in your room or living room or kitchen screaming at you for stuff. Something about him being a doctor, not something else. But love this figure. Certainly thanks for watching as you always do, guys. And certainly also stay tuned. Spot's going to have more videos heading your way as well. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.